Stop everything right now. Collectors are fighting behind closed doors over pennies most people throw away. Dark, scratched, ugly coins that look completely worthless. But here's the secret nobody tells you. Some of those ugly pennies are exactly the ones collectors are searching for. Every year, millions of pennies pass through hands, pockets, and cash registers. Over time, they become worn, damaged, and almost unrecognizable. Most people assume those coins are junk, but sometimes the worst-looking pennies hide something strange. Tiny mint mistakes, unusual lettering, metal that looks slightly different from normal coins, small details that shouldn't exist at all. When collectors notice those differences, everything changes. Suddenly, the same penny everyone ignored becomes a coin collectors quietly compete for in private sales and auctions. What once looked worthless can suddenly become something people are willing to pay serious money for. And the most shocking part? Many of these discoveries come from jars of old coins, pocket change, or forgotten drawers inside people's homes. Coins that circulated for decades before anyone noticed something unusual. That's why serious coin hunters always say the same thing. Never ignore the ugly pennies, because the coin everyone else overlooks might be the one collectors are secretly searching for right now. Fire. Stop everything right now and listen carefully, because what you are about to hear might completely change the way you look at pennies forever. Collectors are quietly fighting behind closed doors over certain pennies most people would never even pick up from the ground. Dark, scratched, ugly coins that look like they have absolutely no value. Coins that look like they have been destroyed by time. But hidden among those worn pieces of copper is a secret that serious coin collectors understand very well. Sometimes the worst-looking pennies are the ones worth the most money. One of the coins that keeps appearing in quiet collector conversations is the 1947 wheat penny. To the average person, it looks like just another old penny. Nothing special, just a brown coin with Abraham Lincoln on the front and 2 wheat stalks on the back. Millions of them were made, and for decades people spent them without thinking twice. But collectors know something that most people don't. The 1947 wheat penny was created during a strange period in American coin production. The years after World War II were full of change. The U.S. Mint was producing coins in enormous quantities to keep up with the growing economy. Machines were running constantly. Dies were wearing out. Mistakes were happening more often than people realized. And when mistakes happen at a mint, they sometimes create coins that should never exist. Over time, many of these coins entered circulation and lived normal lives. They traveled through grocery stores, gas stations, restaurants, vending machines, and pocket change. Decades passed. The coins became darker, scratched, and damaged. People assumed they were worthless, but that is exactly where the hidden treasure sometimes lives, because the longer a coin stays in circulation, the more likely it is that nobody notices the strange details hiding on it. Collectors who search through old jars of pennies know this very well. They sit for hours under bright lights, studying coins that most people would throw away. They turn them slowly, looking for tiny signs that something is different. And sometimes they find it. A small error in the lettering. A strange doubling in the date. A die crack running across Lincoln's face. A slightly off-center strike that should never have passed inspection. These are the details that make collectors stop breathing for a moment. Because a normal penny might be worth 1 cent, but a rare error penny can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. The 1947 wheat penny is one of those coins where strange things occasionally appear. Some collectors have discovered doubling in the date or lettering caused by the minting dies shifting during production. Others have found coins struck slightly off-center, where the design is not perfectly aligned with the edge. These kinds of coins were never supposed to leave the mint, but sometimes they did, and once they entered circulation, they disappeared into everyday life. Think about how many pennies have existed since 1947. Billions of coins moving through the country for decades, passing from person to person, sitting inside jars, drawers, boxes, and forgotten collections. Most of those coins are ordinary, but a few of them are not. That's why serious coin hunters never ignore old pennies, especially ugly ones. Because the truth is, a perfectly shiny coin is often one that has already been examined. But a dark, worn, scratched coin might have spent 70 years hiding in plain sight without anyone ever looking closely. And sometimes those are the coins that reveal the biggest surprises. Collectors have told stories about finding rare coins inside bags of old pennies bought for almost nothing. They pour the coins onto a table and begin the slow process of searching. Hundreds of coins, thousands of coins. Most of them are ordinary. Then suddenly, something looks strange. Maybe the numbers and the date appear slightly doubled. Maybe the lettering looks thicker than normal. Maybe the edge of the coin shows that the design was struck off center. In that moment, the search becomes exciting, because they might be holding a coin that nobody noticed for decades. The 1947 wheat penny has been part of many discoveries like this. While most examples are worth only a small amount, certain coins with unusual mint errors or exceptional condition can be far more valuable than people expect. Collectors know that rare variations can appear even in years where millions of coins were produced, and that is why they keep searching. But there is another reason these coins can become valuable. Time. A coin from 1947 has already survived more than 70 years. During that time, many pennies were lost, melted, damaged beyond recognition, or simply thrown away. The number of surviving coins slowly decreases over the decades. And when fewer coins remain, the ones that survive become more interesting to collectors, especially when they carry unusual features. But here is the part that surprises most people. Many valuable coin discoveries come from coins that look terrible, coins that are dark brown or almost black from decades of circulation, coins covered with scratches and wear, coins that people assume have no value at all. Collectors know that appearance can be deceiving, because mint errors happen at the moment a coin is created. That mistake remains forever, no matter how worn the coin becomes. So even if the coin looks ugly, the rare feature is still there, hidden, waiting for someone to notice. That is why coin collectors sometimes sit quietly examining old coins for hours. They know that one small detail could change everything, and every year new discoveries are still being made. Coins that spent generations moving through everyday transactions suddenly appear under a magnifying glass and reveal something unusual. Sometimes those coins are sold privately between collectors. Other times they appear at auctions where bidders compete to own a rare piece of history. What makes this even more fascinating is that many of these coins started as simple pocket change. Imagine someone in the 1950s receiving a 1947 wheat penny at a store. They spent it again without thinking. It moved to another person, then another. For decades, it traveled through the country unnoticed, until one day a collector looked closely and realized the coin was not ordinary. That possibility is what keeps coin hunters searching. Every jar of old pennies might contain a hidden surprise. Every box of forgotten coins might contain something unusual. And every dark, worn penny could have a story waiting to be discovered. The 1947 wheat penny is a perfect example of how ordinary coins can become part of the mystery and excitement of coin collecting. Because even after all these years, people are still searching for them, still studying them, still hoping to find the one coin that looks strange enough to make collectors stop and look twice. So, the next time you see an old penny, especially one that looks worn and ugly, don't ignore it too quickly. Turn it over. Look closely at the date. Examine the lettering, because the coin everyone else overlooks might be the one collectors are secretly searching for right now. Stop everything right now and take a moment to think about the pennies you see every day. The coins that sit in jars fall between couch cushions or get handed back as pocket change. Most people never look at them twice. They assume a penny is just a penny. But collectors know a secret that most people completely ignore. Some of the ugliest, most worn pennies in circulation can hide details that make them far more valuable than anyone expects. Behind closed doors, serious coin collectors spend hours searching through piles of old coins looking for tiny clues. Scratches, strange lettering, unusual marks in the metal. Details so small that the average person would never notice them. But to a collector, those details can mean everything. One coin that quietly appears again and again in these searches is the 1957 wheat penny. At first glance, it looks ordinary. Abraham Lincoln on the front, the familiar wheat stalks on the back, and a small letter D under the date, showing it was minted in Denver. Millions of these coins were produced, and for decades, they moved through everyday transactions across the United States. Grocery stores, gas stations, restaurants, vending machines. The coin passed from hand to hand without anyone paying attention. Over time, the copper surface darkened. Edges became smooth from years of circulation. Scratches appeared. Dirt and oxidation slowly turned the once bright coin into something dull and ugly. Most people would assume a coin like that has no value at all. But collectors know something different. Sometimes the coins that look the worst are exactly the ones hiding the most interesting secrets. During the 1950s, the United States Mint was producing enormous numbers of coins to keep up with the growing economy. Machines were working constantly. Metal planchets were being fed into presses at incredible speed. Minting dies were striking coins thousands of times every day. And when production moves that fast, small mistakes can happen. Tiny shifts in the dies, slight misalignments during striking, metal flowing in ways it wasn't supposed to. Most of the time, those mistakes are so small that nobody notices them for decades. But occasionally a collector finds one. The 1957 wheat penny is known among collectors because some examples show unusual details that shouldn't normally appear on a coin. Slight doubling in letters. Strange die cracks forming lines across the surface. Off-center strikes where the design doesn't perfectly align with the edge. These kinds of coins were never meant to leave the mint. But once they did, they disappeared into circulation like every other penny. Think about how many times a coin changes hands during its lifetime. One purchase leads to another. The coin travels from city to city, state to state. Sometimes it ends up forgotten inside a jar or hidden inside a drawer for decades. During all that time, nobody notices the small differences. That is why collectors often search through huge piles of old pennies, hoping to spot something unusual. They spread the coins out on a table under bright light and begin examining them one by one. Hundreds of coins, thousands of coins. Most of them are completely ordinary. But then something looks different. Maybe the date appears slightly thicker than usual. Maybe the lettering shows a shadow effect caused by a die shift. Maybe the edge of the design is not perfectly centered on the coin. In that moment, the collector stops and looks closer, because those small differences might mean the coin is not ordinary at all. Many rare coin discoveries begin exactly like this. An old penny that looked worthless suddenly reveals a detail that changes everything. A small mint error that survived unnoticed for decades suddenly becomes interesting to collectors. The 1957 wheat penny has been part of many stories like this. While most examples are still common, certain variations or error coins can attract serious attention among collectors. And here is something even more surprising. Some of the coins that become valuable are not shiny or beautiful. They are dark, worn, ugly, coins that most people would ignore without even turning them over. But collectors understand that value does not always come from appearance. Sometimes it comes from rarity, history, or strange features created during the minting process. A coin that shows unusual doubling or a dramatic die crack might be far more interesting than a perfectly normal penny. That is why experienced coin hunters never rush when searching through old coins. They move slowly, examining each piece carefully. They know that hidden among hundreds of ordinary pennies, there might be one coin that stands out. One coin with a detail that shouldn't exist. And that possibility is what keeps them searching. Every jar of old coins might contain something unusual. Every forgotten box of pennies might hide a coin that nobody noticed for years. Imagine a 1957 wheat penny sitting quietly inside a jar since the 1960s. Decades pass. The coin becomes darker and more worn. People assume it has no value. Then, one day someone decides to look closely. They tilt the coin under a light. They notice something strange in the lettering. Suddenly, the ordinary penny becomes something much more interesting. That moment of discovery is what drives the entire world of coin collecting. Because history is hidden in small objects, and sometimes the most ordinary coin can hold an unexpected story. So, the next time you see an old penny, especially one that looks worn, dark, or ugly, don't ignore it too quickly. Turn it over. Look at the date. Examine the details carefully, because the coin everyone else ignores might be the one collectors have been secretly searching for all along. Stop everything right now and look closely at the pennies around you, because one of the most overlooked coins in everyday pocket change might be hiding a secret that collectors quietly search for. Behind closed doors, coin collectors spend countless hours studying old pennies that most people would never even notice. Dark coins, scratched coins, worn coins that look like they have absolutely no value left. But hidden among those ordinary pieces of copper are rare details that can turn a forgotten penny into something collectors desperately want to find. One of the coins that often appears in these quiet searches is the 1945 wheat penny. At first glance, it looks completely ordinary. Abraham Lincoln on the front, the 2 wheat stalks on the back, and the simple date stamped below Lincoln's portrait. For decades, this design was part of everyday life in America. Millions of people use these coins for small purchases, never imagining that one day collectors would be carefully examining them. But 1945 was not just any year for coins. It was the final year of World War II. Factories across the United States were running constantly, producing equipment, weapons, and supplies for the war effort. The U.S. Mint was also working under pressure, producing huge numbers of coins needed for a rapidly changing economy. Machines were running fast. Minting dies were striking coins thousands of times every day. And when production happens at that speed, small mistakes can appear. Those mistakes sometimes create coins that were never supposed to exist. The 1945 wheat penny was struck in 3 different mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Each mint used its own dies and equipment, and over time those dies slowly wore down. As they aged, tiny cracks formed in the metal. Designs shifted slightly. Letters and numbers sometimes appeared thicker or doubled. To the average person, these differences are almost impossible to see. But to a collector, they can mean everything. Some 1945 wheat pennies show interesting die cracks running across the surface of the coin. Others reveal slight doubling in the lettering or numbers caused by the die moving slightly during the minting process. A few coins were even struck slightly off-center, creating designs that don't perfectly align with the edge. These small minting mistakes are the kinds of things collectors search for. Because a normal penny might only be worth a few cents, but a rare error coin can suddenly become something collectors are willing to pay far more to own. What makes this even more fascinating is that many of these coins spent decades moving through ordinary circulation. They passed through grocery stores, gas stations, diners, and vending machines. They were carried in pockets, dropped in jars, and forgotten inside drawers. Over time, the coins became darker and more worn. The bright copper color slowly faded into deep brown tones. Edges softened from years of handling. Scratches and marks appeared everywhere. Most people assumed those coins were worthless. But collectors know that sometimes the ugliest coins hide the most interesting stories, because the features that make a coin rare are created the moment it is struck at the mint. Even if the coin becomes worn after decades of circulation, those unusual details are still there, hidden, waiting for someone to notice them. That is why serious coin collectors often search through massive piles of old pennies. They pour hundreds of coins onto a table and examine each one carefully under bright lights or magnifying lenses. Most of the coins they see are completely ordinary, but every once in a while, something unusual appears. A line running through the design where a die cracked long ago, a letter that appears doubled, a date that looks slightly different from normal coins. When collectors notice something like that, the search suddenly becomes exciting because they might be holding a coin that nobody recognized for decades. The 1945 wheat penny has been part of many discoveries like this. While the majority of these coins remain common, certain examples with unusual features or extremely well-preserved surfaces can attract serious attention among collectors. And the truth is, many of those discoveries still happen today. Collectors regularly search through old jars of coins, hoping to find something rare hiding in plain sight. Sometimes those coins have been sitting untouched for 40 or 50 years. Imagine a jar filled with pennies collected during the 1960s or 1970s. At the time, those coins were just spare change. Nobody thought they were important. But inside that jar there might be a 1945 wheat penny that nobody ever examined closely. Decades pass. The coin waits silently among hundreds of others. Then, one day someone decides to search through the jar. They slowly examine each coin, turning them under the light. And suddenly one penny looks slightly different. That moment of discovery is what keeps collectors searching year after year. Because history often hides inside the smallest objects, the 1945 wheat penny is a reminder that even ordinary coins can carry stories from the past. Coins that traveled through wartime America, passed through countless hands, and survived decades of everyday use. Most of them remain simple reminders of history, but a few contain tiny details that make them far more interesting to collectors. And the most surprising part is that many of those coins still exist in everyday places. Old piggy banks, coffee cans filled with loose change, forgotten boxes tucked away in closets or attics, places where nobody has looked closely in years. That's why experienced coin hunters always give the same advice. Never ignore old pennies, especially the dark, worn ones, because the coin that looks the most ordinary might actually be hiding the most interesting secret. So, the next time you see an old wheat penny, take a moment before you spend it. Look closely at the date. Examine the lettering and the design, because the small coin sitting quietly in your hand might be a piece of history that collectors are still searching for today. Fire.